Blizzard used to be a company whose games you would look forward to. Many of its franchises are beloved, and many of its games remain great titles in their respective genres. But regardless of what you think of their old games, most would agree that Blizzard's track record is not what it used to be. Blizzard's internal conflicts, problems, and outright unlawful and unethical behavior seems to have accumulated over the years, and while new information on internal problems is still being revealed, the games that are being produced during this strife have begun to reflect the internal issues of the developer. Warcraft, the real-time strategy game, was one of the most important titles in the company's history, spawned a billion-dollar IP, and laid the foundation for future success. One of those future successes, Warcraft III, was the most popular in the franchise, and 18 years later, it was set to be remastered. While expectations were high that a faithful recreation of one of the all-time great RTS games would bring the old community back together, the product that Blizzard delivered was not up to par. It's now been a year and a half since the game was released, and while Blizzard has promised to add in content and fix a number of bugs, it's been months of radio silence from the perennial developer. Today, we're going to take a retrospective look at one of the most infamous remasters in recent years, and how through the now familiar mismanagement, Blizzard managed to disappoint pretty much their entire fanbase. This is Warcraft III Reforged. For those who don't know, Warcraft III Reforged was meant to be a resurrection of one of the greatest RTS games of all time. The title that had Dota All-Stars and pushed forward the tower defense genre was also one of the games that put Blizzard Entertainment on the map back in the early 2000s. So fans were understandably excited about the prospect of their favorite game getting the upgrade treatment. But the small classic games team at Blizzard ran into some trouble right off the bat. Simply put, they didn't quite have the manpower to complete the endeavor within Activision's timeframe. And when the game did finally release, what fans received was nothing short of disappointing. It was a buggy mess with long load times, disconnects, and tons of features that were either butchered or outright removed. An anonymous spokesperson communicating with Bloomberg said, quote, "The central issue with Warcraft III Reforged was an early, unclear vision and misalignment about whether the game was a remaster or a remake. This led to other challenges with the scope and features of the game and the communication on the team, with leadership and beyond, which all snowballed closer to launch. Developers across Blizzard pitched in to help, but ultimately bug fixing and other tasks related to the end of development couldn't correct the more fundamental issues." To give one example of this unclear vision, we can look at how Blizzard handled the creation of new character models. One of the biggest things that Reforged brought to the table was upgraded graphics, which included shiny new HD character models. Rebuilding every character from the ground up, as well as introducing new models that were never in the game to begin with, gave the sense that Blizzard was not just remastering Warcraft 3, but remaking the game completely. However, all of these brand new character models, in-game animations, and spells were capped at 30 frames per second, meaning that although the content looked great at first glance, it also looked like stop-motion animation when actually playing the game. The reason for this is that you can actually run Reforged at a much higher frame rate, all the way up to 200 if you wanted to, which would make the game look really smooth when moving around the map. Unfortunately, this smoothness just made the choppy 30 FPS animations look even worse and outright weird. According to Rock Paper Shotgun, due to the immense crunch to get the game finished in time, many of the animations for Reforged were outsourced overseas to animators outside of the classic games team and outside of Blizzard. As we mentioned earlier, this is one place where communication very clearly broke down. Because making the models look good was one thing, but fully integrating them into the game is a whole nother beast. But there was more going on behind the scenes than just a disunified vision. A few who worked on the title at Activision Blizzard have come forward to elucidate just what was happening during the development process. One of the biggest problems was the game just couldn't get enough funding. While the rework was greenlit by Activision Blizzard higher-ups, it was clear that most of the company's money would be funneled into bigger franchises like Diablo IV and Overwatch 2. This lack of funding meant less people working on the game and a longer time stuck in development. With pre-orders already in, Blizzard was reluctant to push the game's release date back too far and instead chose to knowingly release the title prematurely. Wrought with bugs and a lack of content, this decision proved to be one of the worst they could have made. One spokesperson for Blizzard said, quote, "We took pre-orders when we knew the game wasn't ready yet," and then went on to say that they needed to, quote, "resist the urge to ship an unfinished product because of financial pressure." Now, Blizzard has been memed for years for their long development times and the promise of soon. One of the driving forces behind this careful, meticulous approach to game development was Mike Moraine. Co-founder, former president, and former CEO of Blizzard Games, Moraine was adamant about not releasing games until they were finished, even if it meant making fans wait a long time. Moraine left the company in October of 2018. Since then, according to sources within the company, Activision has begun tightening their iron fist, taking a more active role in Blizzard's development of their games, and forcing a departure from the design philosophy that defined Blizzard for 2 decades. Although Activision and Blizzard have been merged since 2007, for most of that time, Blizzard was pretty much still independent, free to operate on their own timelines and maintain the same standards for their games that the community had come to expect. But with Moraine's departure, Activision began pressuring the devs to put out Reforged despite it not being ready yet, and the final product spoke for itself. First off, Reforged was incredibly unstable. The game frequently had unplayably high ping, and disconnects were frequent. At the first Blizzard-sponsored Reforged Major, this was on full display for all to see, as high-level matches were cut short due to the game crashing or disconnecting.
No Breath of Fire, by the way, it is Drunken Haze, so big mischance on these Dragonhawks and a disconnect.
I'm gonna assume Thorzain dropped, but I feel like Moon was on the way to holding this attack. Oof.
Other than the game being literally unplayable half the time, there were also a slew of features that were cut. Custom campaigns, player profiles, cross-region play for custom games, clans, ladders, tournament modes. Heck, you couldn't even matchmake against other pre-made teams, as the matchmaking would put you against randoms instead. But one of the most notable removals was that of the ladder system. Basically, the entire ranked system that defined Warcraft III was completely removed. The ladder system was the place to compete in Warcraft III to see where you stacked up and compared to others, as well as challenge players to see who was really the best. Taking this out meant that the most compelling competitive mode was simply gone. And sure, players have gone and made their own websites to run ladders, but it's shocking to think that Blizzard would remove one of the most fundamental features from the original game. To cap it all off, Blizzard completely removed the original Warcraft 3 from their digital platform, meaning that the community, which has been playing the game for more than 20 years at this point, can't even go back and play the old Warcraft 3 anymore without jumping through hoops and setting up their own servers. The dedicated group who stuck with their game over the years has now been essentially forced to play on a less stable, less fulfilling version of the original game, and they can't even opt out. Understandably, the game was critically panned on release, and even though remastering an old game seems like a relatively straightforward endeavor, many were shocked by how many things were just a straight up downgrade from the original. Shortly after launch, refunds were issued with no questions asked, and Blizzard was getting some of the worst press it had ever had so far. Since the original release, the team that worked on the game has been completely absorbed by Activision Blizzard, making it unclear who exactly is working on the changes. Most think that the work will be outsourced to a secondary developer, but nearly 18 months after the game's initial release, there has been virtually no communication from Blizzard. The last official post by Blizzard on their forums was in October of 2020, and it was just patch notes. A year later, Blizzard announced Diablo II Resurrected, another remastering of another classic title, the announcement of which was done very carefully to reassure players that it would not be in any way comparable to what happened with Reforged. Since then, the team behind Resurrected has been fairly good about keeping players posted on what is staying the same and what is being changed. While it hasn't all been perfect, the general reception of Resurrected has been positive so far, especially on the art front, although we'll have to wait and see until it's in the public's hands for a verdict. As for Reforged, hope for a fixed version is all but gone, as it seems Activision Blizzard has left the game for dead. While community modders are doing their best to create an experience that somewhat resembles the game that many were hoping for, Reforged remains in its unfinished, unsatisfying state. Even if Blizzard took the time to work at it, the sour taste of the game's release will be remembered. And as more news of internal issues come out every day, it seems like the company has more important things to fix. Currently, the game sits at a 0.6 out of 10 user score on Metacritic, an accurate rating for the product of a company that has fallen from grace. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, And shout out to Jason, B, Brendan, QB, David, Foxy, Iron, Lyra, Mauve, Nate, Sierra, Shampoo, Weebu, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being Platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Steven, Noodles, Marco, Mookie, and Orioriol for being Diamond supporters. We'd also like to extend an extra special shout out to Fool from the Art of Warfare for being our Grandmaster supporter. Thank you all for your continued support. If you also want to support our channel and unlock perks, check out the Patreon link in the description below or join our Discord server. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.